Hello, and welcome to Manifesting Marvel, a brand new podcast dedicated to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm your co host, Jacob,
And I'm your co-host Raga.
and today we're discussing Loki Episode 2 The Variant. So, straight off the bat, man, what did you think? I thought it was incredible.
I thought it was incredible as well. Like last week, I was so hyped about all the potential avenues that Loki could go into, and then this week it's just like, oh, kind of wait a minute, we haven't explored the TVA yet,
Yeah,
and what's going to happen in there, and then it's kind of, it started really well off with the showing of the villain as like the variant as like
yeah,
what's happening and what sort of power they have
mm,
kind of bit more information. And obviously, I couldn't figure out who it is until the later in the episode.
yeah,
But it was more of a like, oh, this is the person that like they just kill straight off the bat, like just go out and kill.
yeah,
But it was cool to see they kind of showing that and then kind of going into TVA a little bit and then
yeah.
Loki. So I think it was very interesting, and there's a lot of things to talk about today. So let's go. So what do you think about it when you watched the episode?
So I thought it, as I said, I thought it was really good. I liked the tone. I thought like the music and the way that it was shot, it was quite dark. Like even though through the entire episode Loki's like being really good friends with Mobius, and you kind of think, oh, maybe this is Loki's new purpose. He's going to be a TVA agent and he's going to set his new ways kind of thing because he's outside the timeline. But then there was always like this dark kind of music, or like the way that it was shot was dark, or like these ominous kind of like piano tones, and it just made me feel like either something bad was going to happen or like that Loki couldn't be trusted. And I agree with you, like as well, it was cool seeing Loki being able to be like actually show off his intelligence a little bit more. Like throughout
Yeah,
throughout the films, like you've never really understood his magic, and it kind of just showed him off as this guy that would like, I don't know, have like holograms and stuff, or to what it was thought. And it was really cool to see him like scientifically explain what his powers were, and occasionally have like really really good points. And one other thing as well, which but it might not be in any significance to the Loki series, but it's because I just like Tom Hiddleston. It was cool to see him talking like Latin at Pompeii and stuff as well, because
yeah,
if I'm correct, I think that's what his like degree in is. So that's pretty awesome as well.
yeah. I think like I find it's like Loki has seems a bit more intelligent
Yeah,
rather than arrogant and angry and trying to like fight, the anger of someone just trying to piss someone off. Like he's
yeah,
more of a like the intelligent person in that room,
yeah,
and he's an expert in his own self. Like he knows exactly what he's doing,
yeah,
but he likes talking about himself, but not in a way that explaining to people why he does certain things. Like he's just talking about himself.
yeah.
So let's kind of go into the opening scene of the Renaissance event, where we see the evil Loki. So
Yes.
what do you think about that? What you made of it?
Well, it's interesting because obviously it kicks off, and it's kind of weird as the viewer because it's flicking through dates at the bottom, so you're unsure if it's actually back in time or if it's set like within the last couple of decades, and they're just kind of at a fair or something. But then it's obviously like revealed to you that it's like a fair, which I think is another kind of nod to how this is all shot, because they're kind of showing that it's going to be chaos, and it kind of makes you uneasy because you kind of don't know your surroundings. But yeah, so it kind of kicks off at that Renaissance Fair in Wisconsin, and that's kind of cool. It's interesting because
Yeah,
the sign that they show outside the tent, it's written in the Loki font, which is kind of a
yeah,
little cool nod. And I saw as well on a rock star was talking about it on Twitter, and he was also saying that you can see a female walk past the tent that looks like somebody that we'll be talking about at the end of the episode, but you don't notice it unless you go back and watch it, because you're looking for another variant of Loki, not
yeah,
this variant of Loki. So yeah, I thought it was a very interesting like opening, and obviously in Wisconsin you have the Oshkosh town, which is like home to Wendell Vaughn, which is AKA Quasar in the comic book. So that's also kind of cool. It's a little like comic book nod. I don't know if Quasar's going to show up in the series, but it's cool that they
yeah.
like had it set there.
Yeah, I think like most of the places that we're gonna see in Loki is kind of either some sort of a superior origin, I
Yeah.
mean, we will talk later talking about all the places that it's things are happening,
Yeah.
and we will see like those are have some sort of ties to all the places that we see, and then kind of then we kind of go back to Miss Minute, kind of talking to training Loki, and while he was looking at his jet ski magazine for Mobius jet ski magazine,
Yeah. See,
and yeah,
really liked that Miss Minutes bit because what I find really interesting about Miss Minutes, okay, because like you see Loki ask us, like, are you a
yeah,
recording or are you alive? And that kind of like implies that like she has said responses to said questions or she can do anything. But when Loki starts like trying to hit her and she jumps around and she actually responds, if you
yeah,
actually listen as well, you can hear her like footsteps clamping on the
yeah,
table. So like she has weight, and then obviously when she goes into the screen and she's kind of like pulling like a face at him, it just got me
yeah,
thinking as well because I don't know, man. I feel like the TVA might
yeah,
actually be like the villain to all of this. I just have a
yeah,
feeling that the way that like everything acts, because I like you're saying, even with Mobius with the jet ski magazine, that's really funny because he's like obviously always been in the
yeah,
TVA. He's probably never gonna leave the TVA, and for him to like have this like fantasy and this love for like jet skis, it's just funny because he's like so blinded by the propaganda and everything of the TVA that
yeah,
like he won't ever go against it, but what he truly wants he won't get either. But I kind of just hope, on like a little side note, that with everything that happens, hopefully we get to see Mobius ride a jet ski at some point. It would be a nice
yeah.
finish to the thing. But
Uh,
one thing I did want to
yeah,
quickly say about that though, because
yeah,
I've got it in my notes before we move past the jet ski. Um, the volume of the magazine is volume 26, number 4, and that's a
yeah,
reference to a Thor comic book where Loki is actually ruling Asgard, and it
yeah,
features Enchantress, and that's super important for what I want to talk about when we get to a little bit further on in the
like
episode.
I want to add another funny thing that I saw in the thing, and I noticed it as well. Thanos
Yes.
appearing on the screen of like the what's it called, like a training session,
Yeah, like a
like
multiple choice question thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
multiple choice question. And then for seeing Thanos as the main villain in last 10 years of Marvel, and it's kind of building up to it. Now he's just like another little word in the
Yeah.
monitor. It's just crazy, like how far we came from in the Marvel universe to be in a massive supervillain. Now he's just like a case study for someone else in the TVA,
Yeah.
and also talking about Mobius with jet ski, like I believe like what you said, it's just they've been brainwashed to kind of follow the agenda of someone else, and then I believe that he will kind of come to a light of what's going on, and then at the end of the season we will see him on a jet ski, hopefully.
I've got a pretty good theory about Mobius, but I'll bring it up with another point towards the end because it kind of aligns with someone
Yeah,
else. But we should probably move on to the next bit where this for me is one of my favorite bits because I'm such like a geek when it comes to the idea of the multiverse. And like I love it with Rick and Morty, I love it with all those kind of programs, just like
yeah,
this idea that you could like create an army of yourselves. Like I could have a council of Jacobs and I could go and get all the
yeah,
Jacobs from all the different universes and we could just control everything. And I loved that in this episode we got to see different variants of Loki through the hologram,
yeah,
even though like some of them weren't that long. It was just really funny to see. And like I don't know if you noticed this, but like we got a frost giant Loki,
yeah.
and then we got a cyclist Loki. And the cyclist Loki's interesting because the
He's a
photo,
Tour de France winner.
yeah, he's a
Yeah,
Tour de France winner, but also he's waving, and it's the same position as when he's wearing the suit waving with Thor in the Doctor Strange film. So they've took that photo
yeah,
from a still and photoshopped him into like bicycle gear, which is kind of funny. And then they've
yeah.
got I think like a Hulk Loki or like a really
Yeah,
beefed up
Hulk
Loki.
Loki. Yeah, I think even the Loki himself kind of shocked when he see that, and I was like,
Yeah,
"Where is he when I needed him?"
yeah,
Like, imagine if we had him
yeah.
in New York 2012, the
Well,
Hulk scene would have happened.
Loki. If I was Loki, I would be like freaking out in that moment because I'd quickly
Yeah,
realize because all Loki wants to do is kind of like assume power, and like to him that's being like you can go and find every single version of yourself and like assume power, like you can take over kind of thing. And I can imagine that a light bulb went off in his head. But the next one, it's weird because I had a look online because I wasn't sure what it was, because a lot of people were saying like a trickster Loki,
Yeah,
but it kind of looked like like more of a devil worshipping Loki, because the horns were like
yeah,
turned and stuff, and he had like skull stuff around his
yeah.
neck. So I don't know if that's just
But someone says a Mandalorian style kind of
yeah,
Loki
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
But I'm not really sure.
So, yeah,
I think we're gonna have to maybe see few more clues, or maybe look through the comics to find something like
yeah.
that.
But then the last one was kind of funny too with the Viking Loki, because that's what
Yeah,
the Asgardians looked like in like the old kind of films, like with Thor and
yeah,
everybody showing up looking like proper Vikings. So that was really cool. And it's kind of like an add-on to the first episode, because in the first episode we had, when it was like the cartoon showing what would happen if you created a variant kind of thing, or you create
yeah,
a split in the branch. You got to see like the different versions where they're like they were the teapot and stuff like that. But it's nice to actually see different variants of the characters, because I can imagine going forward with like Doctor Strange and everything, if there is going to be a multiverse, we're probably going to see like multiple versions of like so many characters. So it's like it's cool to see Marvel like starting to sprinkle it in now, like getting you used to the idea, because that's one thing that they've done so well with these series, is like they are
yeah.
so crazy in comparison to the films. Like I genuinely didn't think that they'd ever top Endgame, and like WandaVision was mad, and like then Falcon and the Winter Soldier comes out, and you're like, oh well, there's no way that's gonna top WandaVision, and like it's just as good. Like it's just as good, the storyline. And it's just the same with Loki. It's just so impressive.
I think we could agree on Loki's on another level
Yeah,
of to compare to both of them, with the multi-universe kind of opening up,
yeah,
and we could see all the potential things that could happen or could take place in the universe. And then also, we know that there's going to be three different versions of Spider-Man in the upcoming Spider-Man movie as well,
yeah,
No Way Home. So I believe that they kind of making us getting used to it in the Loki series, and then I think they're gonna, rather than going for like a 10-year plan, I think it's going to be a very rushed one, whether we're going to see a big villain introduced either in this series or maybe in upcoming
mm.
series, where we're going to see that big villain's going to appear, and we're going to start seeing that character development as well.
Yeah. No, that's a very
Yeah,
good point. That's a very good point. I liked the bit just after that where Loki, because when Loki starts, because when they go into the tent and then they start like having that discussion, and Loki, I thought at that moment Loki's actually like helping them, but then you very
yeah, I
quickly
thought that as well.
you
Yeah,
very quickly realize that he's trying to trick them. But I don't know if it is like an important thing to mention or anything, but I noticed it. He mentioned, didn't he, about how Asgard had a saying about
yeah.
wolves, and then obviously how they'd forgotten about the Asgardian wolves because one had served Hela as well, and obviously he hadn't been on that timeline to either see it come back, kind of thing. So that was kind of like a cool little nod back.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot of Ragnarok and Thor and Asgard Last Days kind of reference throughout, but we didn't know that in the series when we were watching it. Well, we were thinking, oh, it's just he's mentioning about the wolves, but he wasn't. He's not really sure that he was actually appeared alive
Yeah,
at the end of Ragnarok, because I don't think he knew about the Ragnarok being destroyed
yeah.
in the first episode, because he finds out. So, what are you thinking about? Mobius telling Loki he's a scared little boy and shivering in the cold. Like, he's going back to again being telling him he's the weaker one. He's not worthy
Yeah,
of
like it's
being here. Kind of.
yeah, it's like it's also kind of like telling him it's kind of brutal as well, because it's reminding him that he's not an Asgard, like he's not a full Asgardian, because like he is a frost giant, and Odin did find him as like a scared little baby just crying in the cold, and like it's quite a brutal thing to say to him.
Yeah, I think I find there's a tone of actually everyone in the TVA undermine Loki, and this basically similar to what he was in Asgard as well, when he was, trying to be a king. Everyone undermine him. Whatever he does is
Yeah,
not seems right. So it's kind of going on the same theme, and I think I'll later talk about his reaction to when everything going crazy, or um, crazy at the end of the episode. I think I could clearly see him why he made that decision over
Yeah.
uh, staying with Mobius. So it's very interesting to kind of see that he's still the same Loki, but at the same time, they all undermine him, or they kind of making him feel like home, maybe
Yeah.
trying to make him feel like, oh, this is another Oscar, like this is how we're gonna treat you. Just get along with us, because he
Yeah.
sticked around. He sticked around. He wanted to rule Asgard, so now he's have an idea of actually overthrowing the timekeepers. So that's very interesting to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with you. Something I wanted to mention as well, because I don't know if you noticed this, because it was eerily weird that there was a scene where Mobius goes to put his drink down, and she makes a point about him not using a coaster, and then it shows rings on the floor, and it was like eerily long. Like, it felt like there was something in that scene that they wanted to show you. Like, they were like, listen to this, and I've got two things. Okay, so the first thing is the coaster is in the shape of a hexagon, which was what Wonder's magic was. It was a hex, and it was also the shape of the hex around Westview. And if Wonder is a Nexus level being, then that could be like a weird kind of like Easter egg nod towards the multiverse breaking. But this is kind of where I wanted to take it. Mobius seems to be having a bit of a come to fruition moment in his life. Like, he seemed, I wouldn't say enlightened, but he's kind of like waking up and he's questioning himself and his reality a little bit. Because I think Loki's prodded him a little bit. I know in the episode he sits there and he goes, that's what I believe, so that's what I believe. Yeah. But I think he has got moments, because even a little bit further on in this episode where they go to the future, he's like, he tells one of the TVA, like, time warriors or whatever they're called, to like to like be nice kind of thing. They're like, no, these are all gonna die anyway kind of thing. So you can kind of see him like developing this bond, and he also kind of showed that in the first episode. And you know where I can't remember now the name of the person that he's like talking to in the office with. I can't remember her name, but when he's talking to her, and he's like, he says about, she mentions about the coaster, and he puts it down, and she says that there's loads of rings. What if Mobius realizes, because this couldn't be too far out of possibilities, right? What if there are multiple versions of Mobius and they all work for the TVA and they just don't know about each other? And Mobius is going to like find himself kind of thing, and it's going to like blow his mind for his purpose, because I don't think the TVA created these beings in the TVA. I think they went through the multiverse and took every version of that person and then turned them into like an office desk person or something like that. And I can see something like that happening with Mobius. I might be super off, but I have a feeling that there's more than one of him, and that's just the other agent, and she's not being honest with him.
Yeah, I think that's the same thought I had, because in the comics he's got three versions of Mobius, like that's why the Mobius, and Mobius his name is. I think it's another version of him, but working in a different timeline to what current Mobius is working. I think they eventually kind of come across, but I feel like we got another 4 episodes to go. So I feel like that's enough time. If they're going to reveal something, Marvel, you should release it by next episode. So we will have some more information, because I think at the end of the episode they come in and introducing another 2 different Mobius involvement or being around. It just kind of, to me, like there's nothing going to happen afterwards, because I'm hoping at the end of the 6th episode the TV is not there anymore. It's kind of burst into multi-universe kind of thing. So hopefully we will see that. And then with Mobius actually with the hexagon sign and all that, I think I feel like we're seeing that more often now in TVA. We're seeing a lot of circles, we're seeing a lot of patterns, but I'm not really sure where they're all relating to, but mostly they're relating to One Division. I have a theory about One Division as well at the end of the thing, so I'll wait till the end to speak about it.
Okay. Well, we'll move a little bit forward on with the episode. So there was another little bit where just before Loki starts getting files from the library, as they're coming down on the elevator, the number 372 is displayed. And that number is actually a nod to a Mighty Thor issue in the comics, which was number 372. And that actually had a featured appearance from the TVA. And I think it also had an appearance from Asgard. So that's kind of interesting because obviously I can't really ever imagine the TVA and Asgard ever meeting. But yeah, it's interesting because they look so different too. It's kind of funny. But we get Loki getting into the library, and it's really interesting because they play the same song. I think it's I had to go and Google this because I like noticed what it was. But they played.
I never noticed it in the episode at all. Like until you mentioned to me earlier today, like I never noticed it. Like I just thought, like, oh, it's just a cool music. It's just a normal library music.
Yeah. Well, I think it was number 3 in Major D by Bach, and it's from the movie Seven, and it's the exact same piece as when Mills and Somerset are in the library investigating a killer, and that's kind of what like Loki's doing. He's just investigating himself. So it's kind of another little like artsy director kind of like Easter egg. It's not really anything to do with the MCU, but I thought it was kind of a little cool thing to mention. And then this is kind of where I think the funniest part of the episode goes, because Loki is obviously looking at the file on Ragnarok, and he learns about like the code name being Revengers, which is what Thor called it in Thor Ragnarok, with Loki and Hulk's little team up.
That appearance from Revengers that we never thought of that would happen.
Yeah.
Like as when Ragnarok's happened, just like Revengers,
Yeah.
I thought that was a funny part, and then it all got a bit serious with Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of they're throwing all back into a mix now.
Yeah. And then I really liked how this storyline then went, because I'm really interested in this idea. Like, I like the idea of this variant Loki hiding out in apocalyptic timelines because it can't branch off. Like, that's a really smart way of hiding from the time police, because no matter what you do, it will still kind of get written off. And I liked how they obviously wanted to think of like different, they were like naming all the different apocalyptic events. And then they end up going to Pompeii, which is quite funny. And like Loki's letting all the goats free. And something interesting about that is when Loki's letting the goats free, he goes, "Be free, my horned friends." And obviously he's got horns as well. So it's kind of funny. I don't know if Loki's based around a goat, but I thought that was quite funny. And then what was super depressive was then they start looking at future timelines on Earth and stuff where she might be hiding. It's quite a bleak version of humanity in the future. You'd have thought that the superheroes would have like beat climate change into action, but I guess they just don't do anything because like
they've failed this. There's no Captain America. There's no Iron Man.
Yeah, what happened to Iron Man doing the reactor that was 0 point energy and was clean in New York? Like, does it all just just all goes out the window?
It's gone now.
Yeah,
it's all gone out the window. I think Peter Parker didn't do a good job.
Yeah,
taking over Iron Man.
What were they called? Roxcar or Roxxon?
Roxxon.
Yeah, they've just seemed like they've just destroyed the planet. But we had like category 8 hurricanes, which is just nuts because I don't think they actually go over category 5 now.
Yeah, and also like is it disaster level or is it 7? It's for Ragnarok.
Yeah.
To compare to, I don't know how those measurements work.
Yeah.
Is it 7 to like category 8?
Yeah.
We only have 5, I believe.
Yeah, and then another thing, we had the Great Tsunami of 2050 or something. Then Krakatoa re-erupted, and then the extinction of the swallow. Like, what we playing at, guys? Like, but then it got me thinking too, because maybe this variant, right? And I'm jumping a little bit, so I'm gonna not say too much about this, but I have a feeling that this variant, as we said, might be Enchantress. I also think she might be of human origin, and I think there could also be a storyline where she maybe is trying to change or create a timeline where humanity doesn't destroy the planet for herself, but that creates a multiverse for everybody else, because she could just be really upset of the world that she's living in, trying to change it. But before we go like too much into that, as we know, they kind of figure out, don't they, that this variant is then at Roxcar, and they kind of go there, and it's one of my favorite opening apocalyptic kind of Marvel scenes. I don't think we've actually seen anything like it, because it's like it's showing like this beautiful like retro 50s kind of painting of what it looked like, And
Yeah.
something that I think is really interesting about the show as well is they kind of show this like high tech, like
Yeah.
holographic world as to be like tacky, and it like falls apart and it's not very strong. And then the
Yeah.
TVA is kind of like really retro, and they're like really strong, and they're really about like not like messing up and stuff. And I think it's really interesting how they paint that contrast. But it was really cool seeing Earth in the future, although it was getting completely destroyed.
It could be a different Earth as well.
Yeah, that's true.
It could be a different version of Earth and where she's from, because you mentioned about climate change and everything, and she's actually the whole Roxcart Center is going to get wiped out.
Yeah.
And the when first they introduce her, she's in an oil field in Oklahoma, I believe.
Yeah.
So they
And
talking
she
about
burns it
maybe,
as well. So
yeah,
like,
so she might think she's kind of targeting all the places where they could actually affect the climate change in the whole universe, maybe,
yeah,
or maybe the Earth.
yeah,
She's trying to do. So it's very interesting to see, because like One Division is about Wanda and Vision, and then about their life story and the little bubble of their era, and then TV, and how much we like TV and all the eras that we had in the television time. And then Captain America, Falcon, and the Winter Soldier had talked about social injustice and
yeah,
the depression and stuff like that for people of ethnic and all that in there. So
yeah,
this could be a little global warming piece for Marvel as well.
yeah,
So very interesting to see, like how that message gonna play about, because I think there's kind of start coming out a little bit showing disasters rather than any sort of event
yeah.
they could have picked.
It's interesting you say that actually, because you've just made a thought go off in my head. What if? Because
Yeah.
just thinking now, all the Thor films, Thor kind of has to, his like arc is like he kind of, I know it's not his entire arc, but he has like this arc with Loki where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Loki, you've let me down. I'm the one that has to fix this, or I'm the one that's going to have to hold your hand now to fix this kind of thing. And maybe that's where they're going with this, but like Loki has to hold the hands of other Lokis. Like he realizes that he's like a bit of a mess up kind of guy, and now he has to fix all the other ones kind of thing. Because I know that's where they look like they were going with hunting variants and stuff, but maybe from like a psychological point for Loki, or like how we get his character to grow, is like he kind of has the Thor arc where he's like, oh, you're another let down Loki kind of thing. I'll fix this timeline, or I'll fix you so you can be better kind of thing. Because he's already had, I feel like, so much more growth in these 2 episodes
Yeah.
than like it felt like he had in like Ragnarok and stuff. And like I was still bawling, crying in the cinema when he got killed by Thanos. But like I'm so much more interested in this timeline variant of Loki than I was of the Loki in the films. And I liked Loki in the films.
Yeah, I think in Ragnarok is just not much of a um much more to continue after. So when he dies in Infinity War, and I was really upset as well. But then to see that they couldn't have just continued from there onwards, because that's they've done everything in one kind of timeline where they build his story up really well, build his character up really well. But this one is kind of shot up really well as soon as he got into TVA,
Yeah.
and he's more settled now. He's learning, so maybe time in the TVA run differently. He might be there for like a minute, he feel like, but he's been there for decades and decades, just learning the craft. So it could be the time difference in the TVA could play a huge part in it as well, from his character development.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I was thinking as well, because from like the trailer footage and stuff, for some reason, when we've seen this Loki and it looks like he's running for president because he's got like the vote for Loki badge and he's got like a suit on. I thought that we were going to see that at this like Roxxon place. I don't know if it was just like the branding of it or whatever, but now I'm thinking, you know how we also had that scene in the trailer where New York is destroyed and you can see the Avengers Tower in the back. Maybe Loki wins the Battle of New York and kind of like takes power of America, but does a really bad job at running at it. And that's one of the variants that we see. Like he won, but he ultimately failed because he wasn't very good at being king. And maybe that's where he like learns that actually you don't want to be a king kind of thing. Because I think what we're going to see from this Loki following this variant Loki is that it kind of makes sense to be a little bit more of a lone wolf for Loki. Like, you trust you and you be you,
Yeah.
because either you let people down or people think that you've let them down, kind of thing. And it would make more sense for him to kind of just go his way. And I think ultimately, because we could probably start talking about this bit now, because we're pretty much there in our like discussion of how far we've got through the episode. But the evil Loki variant is revealed to be Sophia Di Maritino, I think. And at first, I don't know. I genuinely don't know, because through all this bit, right?
Yep.
I'm thinking it's going to be a Lady Loki. We've seen this in the trailer. We've seen like a version of them sitting together when that planet's falling in. I was like, it's going to be Lady Loki. And the way that they like painted it, it looked like it's going to be a Lady Loki. Like, she looks like one of the variants.
It's the Lady Loki.
But I
believe it's the Lady Loki.
I just have a feeling, right, that it's Enchantress, right? And these are my only reasons, okay? Enchantress in the comics has that magic. When she touches people's heads, she can like take control over them, right? Loki can't really do that, because if you remember, right, he can manipulate stuff, but he could only really ever take over people's minds when he had the Infinity Stone staff in Avengers. He couldn't actually do it without it, because otherwise he'd have chucked the staff and he'd have touched Iron Man's head, right? So their powers are different. Now, I also know that Mobius said that the Loki's powers are different depending, are depending different on things. But, right, here's the juicy little bit, right? In the credits at the end, right, her character, it says Loki, Tom Hiddleston. It doesn't say variant or Loki with Sophia Di Martino. It says Sylvia. And Sylvia Liston is Enchantress in the comics. So that's the only reason why I think that I think they're going with the marketing and this idea that it's Lady Loki, but I think it's Enchantress. And as well, the reason why I think that is because her horns, one's broke. So maybe she's like, I don't align with you. Maybe she got her magic from an accident, that something happened with Loki, like Ragnarok and his soul embodied in her or something like that. And that's kind of the way it is, or something crazy. But I do believe that it's Enchantress. And I have a feeling as well, because the only other bit that makes me think this is Loki says to her, like, I'm the better Loki. And she says, I'm not Loki. And then as well, she also says to him, it's not about you, just before she jumps through the thing. And like, it's all about Loki. This entire thing started because of Loki. So it's just making me think that it's not. And I have a feeling the way that it's going to go is like all these other like apocalyptic things that we've seen. It's not going to be Mobius and Loki looking at them. It's going to be Loki and we'll say Lady Loki for now, kind of like on the run from the TVA. But one thing that I thought was very interesting was that guard also said, I've told her where the timekeepers are. And one thing I'm thinking the players here is, you know, when all of the bombs start going off, all the time bombs start going off, and they start falling through the little time slips, and it starts creating all of the branches. What if that's not just to obviously kickstart the multiverse? Because if you notice, all of like the soldiers and people start running through the teleporters. What if that's to get everybody out of the TVA, because you've made so many branches, everybody has to attend to the problem, and then Loki and her can just go in and mess with the Time Lords?
Could be. But I think, I don't think this is Lady Loki at all, because I think it's Sylvia the Enchantress. But also thinking about it in a sense, like, you know, there was a theory that when Loki actually died in Infinity War or in the Ragnarok, where they, you know, when the Thanos killed him, that he said, "You never be God." I think maybe this is when Loki actually died. He trying to find a soul to go into to kind of get the Time Lords, so he could actually revert the time back. Maybe that version of the Loki is trying to actually stop the Thanos from, you know, what he's doing, so trying to like, you know, trying to stop the snap, basically. But obviously the current Loki doesn't know that. Current Loki is 2012 Loki, and we're talking about 2019, 2018 Loki.
Well, so actually, I think the this lady Loki, if I remember correctly, her first date that shows up, it's like 2048. So she's super in the future. Like
Yeah,
she comes from a timeline where like the Avengers would be her grandparents.
yeah.
Well,
So
her parents' idols.
it could be because that's why there was another character in the series that's going to later appear, I believe. That's the old Loki, because someone older person
Yeah.
playing. I think he's going to play as a Loki character. So I believe maybe he's the one trying to get her to do these things, or they were genuinely going after the Time Lords, in order to achieve something. But when he said, "Oh, I'm thinking about overthrowing the Time Lord," she wasn't seemed interested. But if you look at that character, what's his name, Randy,
Yeah.
his face, that you could see that he was like, "Oh wow, he's onto the same plan,"
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because, but it didn't show it Loki that, oh, we were wanted, because Loki wouldn't team up with anybody, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So we could see that in herself, that maybe the powers that she received from Loki kind of making him feel like himself.
Yeah.
So that's why the Randy said, "Look, I'm not interested," but on the face expression, you could see that he is interested.
Yeah. That's a very good point. I liked as well how when Mobius was explaining to Loki, like, oh, they're trying to weave a timeline, and then once they've weaved it infinitely into the future, we will all meet at the end of time. And I was like, that's
Yeah,
kind of cool, because what he's basically saying is the TVA haven't figured out how to perfectly weave it, because
yeah,
branches keep breaking off. And until they figure out how to perfectly weave it and it creates a looped timeline kind of thing, there could always be Nexus level events. But
yeah,
I don't know. I just have a feeling, right? I don't know why. I just have a feeling that the natural state of the MCU should be a multiverse, and the only people that the sacred timeline is benefiting is the Time Lords. Like it might be like we said last episode, that like Kang the
yeah,
Conqueror could be one of the Time Lords or something like that.
yeah,
But I just have a feeling that one of these Time Lords, because we never know, they've got Fantastic Four back now, and you know how Marvel love to like
yeah,
rewrite some of the stuff for the films. They could end up doing like Kang the Conqueror and Galactus are two of the Time Lords kind of thing,
yeah,
and that sets up the Fantastic Four film in the future, because they've also had loads of run-ins with the TVA, like you mentioned last week in the comics and stuff. And
yeah,
I just have a feeling that what's going to
yeah,
actually happen is Lady Loki or Enchantress, we're going to stay on the fence this week. Maybe next week we'll have a clear determined on how we feel about who she is. But I think that character and Loki are probably they're going to end up being the heroes, and I can
yeah,
see the TVA being like the villains, and I can see Mobius like
yeah.
swapping sides.
Yeah, from what you said, I just like to leave this thought on, like, what we talked about in the timeline. So they were untangling or tangling the time laws to try and find out the end of time.
Yeah,
What happened at the end of time? If we all die off, or everything naturally disappear after? Is that what they're going for? Or is it something they were wanted to be in the same timeline of everything so they could control it better? So I
mm.
feel like the Kong the Conqueror, like, he would prefer to have the one timeline where he could control it, whereas like the different timeline that people could jump in between places and then actually, attack him, or go back in time and take him
Yeah,
out, something like that. So I feel like this is kind of where we are going for, because it doesn't say the whole future is figured out. It says a certain future, like, being
yeah,
figured out what's happening,
yeah,
because we don't see like 3000 year 3000 or anything like that going up, but something that shows up on it. So I feel like it's someone trying to figure it out, the whole timeline, or make it into one so they could control it. And that is a possibility that we could see Galactus and other comic characters kind of popping up in
yeah.
the future very soon, because if that's the case, then they all want to fight it off.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I have a feeling that Loki, and we'll say Lady Loki for now, will
Yeah,
probably go to the end of time, because if I'm right, like I think the way that they're going to show it is because there was that scene, wasn't there, where these planets are like colliding with each other and
yeah,
stuff, and like in physics, I think that can actually happen. Like the the force of gravity just ends up kind of like not as being as strong as the strong force, then everything collides with each other, and that's like the end of the universe kind of thing. So like I have a feeling what will be the next episode is Lady Loki showing Loki like, no, when everything's weaved together, this is the end of time. Like it's destruction, it's chaos, it's not order. Because
moon is collapsing in that
yeah,
one, isn't it?
because
The
like
other one
yeah,
over the Earth, I believe, because New
yeah,
York.
yeah, and Mobius also says, he goes, everything is in perfect order, and I think Lady Loki's going to show Loki that it's not. It's just pure chaos. Everything gets destroyed, and it's kind of like a super hard reset, kind of the same like Ragnarok, but for on like a universe standard kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, Loki's then going to be like, the greatest power in the universe isn't the TVA. We can bring it down, kind of thing. And I could see it going in two ways, where it's just them two that team up, or maybe Loki goes and gets a team of Lokis and they like take down the TVA or something. But it's interesting because as well, you just mentioned when all the branches start breaking off, you see all these locations, and like that was cool in itself because it connected the MCU up a little bit. Because like we've obviously heard of like Vormir, where they're like the Soul Stone, and is that that's the Soul Stone, and that's mentioned there. And then you have Asgard, which is like Thor's realm, and then you have Sakaar, which is where they had all the like gladiator battles,
like Hulk,
and Jeff Goldblum's characters there, and then you have Ego, which is
Grandmaster, by the way, Jet Bloomberg, what his name is,
the Grandmaster.
And then you have the Ego from the Guardian of the Galaxy 2. Titan is Thanos one,
and the Eternals world as well. And I think Titan is set in like the date for Titan is 2014, which is 8 years before Endgame. So maybe that's when all of Titan's like atmosphere and everything goes down the pan. Because if you remember, Thanos shows you where it's like fine and where it isn't fine, and maybe that's where they trialed something and it just went wrong.
It's no, I don't think so. But I feel like that's 2014. Titan is where when the Avengers goes back into trying to get the one of the stones.
Yeah, because it's undoing all the timelines. Yeah, that's a very good point.
It was a war going on because I think Thanos had his ideology before then. Because in 2014 he was still looking for the stones. So
yeah, and actually, I think now that you've said that, Endgame as well. Thanos, I think that Thanos that comes forward in time is from 2014, so maybe it's referencing that or something. But then you've got like New York as well, and then Hala actually is on. It's the world where I can't remember what they're called now.
Greed.
Yeah, the Kree. Yeah, the Kree. Yeah, it's the Kree because they went through like technical evolution like thousands of years before humanity did. So like that's where they were, and then they had Rome, which was I think like back in the 1300s or something. But there are so many more than that. These are just like some of the ones that I see. But like it's crazy. It's actually a multiverse of madness. Like you really do get a sense at the end of the episode, like. Oh,
and some of the branches are almost near to the red line. So I like to see is the Nexus even actually going to happen?
Yeah.
Or whether we're going to see that, or we're going to see just not what's happening in TVA and just a story about the Lady Loki or the Sylvia and the Loki himself. And then at the end of the episode that we will see what's exactly happening left off. Because I seen that bit where I wanted to mention is like the Loki kind of left through the time door with Sylvia or Lady Loki. I feel like the TVA I feel like it's played two parts, whether he wanted to prove TVA that he is a better person, he could actually help them fix this thing, or he just very curious about what's going on and he wanted to be part of it, or he's just annoyed at the TVA and he just took an escape and like F this one, I'm just going with them kind of thing. So I feel like it's just that Loki is just not decided on what he's trying to do in the TVA yet, but we'll start seeing more of a character where he's more of a good person now. He does like killing people. He just chase out the people that kills him.
Yeah. One thing actually that I did want to mention, which I thought was interesting. So this Loki that's come from 2012, when he goes back to the TVA, I know they say it exists outside of time, but at the beginning of the episode, it actually shows 2023 and then it flickers back to like 1985 or whatever it is. So I have a feeling that the Loki series is taking place around the same time as the other two series of WandaVision and Falcon, like in real time kind of thing. So here's my question to you.
Yeah.
Is what Wanda does in WandaVision, are we going to see that in the Loki series at all as a Nexus level event?
That's my theory to talk about. Here we
Okay.
go. Okay. So like Wanda is now in a cabin just learning how to do things,
Yeah.
right? Maybe she got Sylvia to distract the timeline, distract the Time Lords, so they get busy. All the Minutemen are just out there everywhere, all these places. I mean, to be fair, Wanda should know all these places. She either have a connection or she's from Earth or she know all these places that exist.
Yeah. So do you think she knows about the TVA? Because I don't know if
Yeah,
she would.
I believe she knows about it because she's a Nexus being, so she's existed in all the timeline. At some point, she would have come across them, or some point she figured it out. And remember, she was trying to. I think there was a time where she trying to revert the time or trying to do something with Vision. Maybe they appeared or she figured it out. But this is what. Listen, hear me out. So she got Sylvia to kind of distract the timeline so she could go and get her children. Because I remember she just her children are stuck somewhere else.
Yeah, so she's gonna like break the
Yeah.
timeline to get him from
So
another
she
one.
break the timeline, create massive loops, so all the time Minutemen and the timekeepers, everyone is busy, and she's gonna go and do something else. So she's using Sylvia because she knew that she probably figured out that's the only way because she figured out that Loki escaped, so
Interesting.
they could tie them together. So she might be the one fully controlling it, and now she's kind of going out of control. She's the one that's going to create the Nexus
Yeah.
event, and that's going to kind of lead it to the Doctor Strange. So I feel like that's kind of something like whatever Wanda does is just kind of making an impact on the
Yeah.
TVA currently at the moment.
That's fair. So
But
so you don't think it's so you think Wanda already knows, you don't think one of the episodes it's gonna be like Wanda's done this and that's one of the branches. You think possibly she's like
she's the one
doing something
behind all of it.
she's doing something with Enchantress. Because I that could make sense because as well they're like magic and the way like they do things
Yeah,
looked similar.
there's all magic in there. It's nothing to do with any sort of other superpowers apart from magic. And we always seeing is just the magic and the times where, and then that's what's going to happen in the
Yeah.
Doctor Strange anyway. Magic and time. That's what we're going to see. So that's the theme, I think, for the Phase 4.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for Doctor Strange. I was watching all these branches break up and I was like, he's gonna be so busy. Like he's got so much like fixing to do. But one thing I did want to say, which I thought was like really, really cool about how it was like breaking off and it was showing all the timelines, and it did get me thinking was I wonder if because like Marvel aren't very good sometimes at like referencing back to like previous stuff that they've done. Like there, people find loopholes and stuff like that in
Yeah.
like their story and stuff like that. They're usually very good, actually. It's not that they're not very good; they're very good. But occasionally, people find
Yeah.
like the occasional
Yeah.
problem. And like one of those ones I was thinking of was like, I wonder if when Wonder was doing all this stuff, if either A, the TVA couldn't physically show up in their little teleporters because the hex was literally a force field and it was outside of
Yeah.
space and time, so they had no idea it was going on. Or if in Doctor Strange in Multiverse of Madness, we get to find out that like they did show up, but she like threw them out of the reality kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
she was so much more powerful than the TVA kind of thing. And like it's just kind of a nod, like, oh yeah, no, they did show up in WandaVision, but Wanda got rid of them, or they couldn't actually show up in her space because she took it into like her own little reality.
Yeah. Because I feel like the TVA is Wanda knew about the TVA or she figured it out from the book or whatever she had. Like she figured it out, and I feel like she's the one that kind of planning to break these branches because she's creating distraction
Yeah.
or the magics or something that she was practicing on making them happening. So all these Loki are going crazy because they may be connected to the magic
Yeah.
they are from. So it could be that reason.
Well,
And also,
maybe magic created the multiverse, and magic is naturally undoing the sacred timeline to bring the multiverse
maybe,
back. But
yeah,
oh, I wanted to say something then because you said something that just I had one last thing that I wanted to sneak in about
yeah,
this episode. Oh yeah, random theory probably won't come to fruition, but what if, right? Miss Minutes is like a
yeah,
super computer AI, kind of like the Kree had in Captain Marvel, and there are
yeah,
no Time Lords. It's just her running the show, and she's made all the propaganda and made everything, but it's all fake, and it's just an AI supercomputer that's tending a timeline.
it could be. She could be AI supercomputer, or she could be AI
And
super magic.
and
You
everybody in the
never know.
TVA is a robot. They're not actually real.
Yeah, but it's funny though because in I think is a Captain America Winter Soldier, is it? Where the German scientist kind of goes in, put himself into a computer,
Yeah,
and it's the same tech.
yeah.
I feel like it's something. Yeah, it could be a possible thing to happen, but I think it's already exist
Because
as a
yeah,
super villain.
yeah.
So I
Because
don't think so, but yeah,
it'd be
could
interesting though.
happen.
It'd be interesting though, because as well, like not leaning too much on that idea, but just sort of something else to do with it as well. Like they were very much into like capturing the aura of humans, if you remember in the first episode, not
Yeah,
humans, but just of living things, and like that could
yeah,
totally make sense then, because Miss Minutes could be an AI. She could be super jealous that variants can only be caused by living matter. They can't be caused by robots or something. Say, so she's created this whole propaganda like machine cog thing, and now she's tending to the timeline and she's trying to like figure out why only living things can change it back to a multiverse. But that's
yeah,
probably completely wrong, and there's definitely going to be time lords and stuff. But I was just thinking about it today because I remember
yeah.
in Captain Marvel the Kree had a supercomputer, and I was like, maybe, you never know.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. Like we like to see that kind of story. And what Marvel should do, just take all the theories and then kind of create like a little version of it. Give it to like a small filmmakers. Just go ahead and make this movie for us.
Yeah, like I think they're doing something similar like with that with the What If cartoon, but
Yeah,
they should do a What If comic, and they should just take all of the Marvel theories and just throw them into one crazy storyline.
yeah.
But
I think that would be interesting. Yeah,
we should probably call it there for this week's
yeah,
episode. So thank you to anyone that's tuned in. This is our second episode, so we appreciate the support that we've been getting on social media. It's been very, very nice. So if you want to give us a follow on Instagram, it's at Manifest Marvel. And if you want to give us a follow on Twitter, it's at Manifest Marvel too. You can keep up to date with when we post episodes. We post some pretty fun Marvel memes. And we also share mine and Raga's thoughts when the episodes come out. So if you want to keep up to date with us in real time, you can go and follow us there. And we have some pretty cool episode artworks as well each week. And if you want to drop us an email or recommend a comic that we should read or
yeah,
something that we should return back to in a Marvel film to rewatch or something, you can do that at manifestingmarvelpodcast@gmail.com. And if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you give us a follow because it helps with getting seen a little bit more, and make sure you download the episode and all that fun stuff. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you give us a thumbs up and let us know down in the comment section below if we've missed anything. And yeah, we will catch you next week.